Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Constellation Energy is one of those companies that is talking to tech companies dealing with the issue of data centers and AI. That stock is up at 60% year to date. It is the third best performing stock within the S&P behind Supermicro and Nvidia. You would not have expected a nuclear company to do that for the S&P. So joining us now is Joe Dominguez, President and CEO of Constellation Energy. Joe, such a pleasure. When I kind of saw the first quarter close out, and I was like, you're the best performing stock. We need to get you on. How many AI, how many big tech companies are calling you right now? What's your relationship with them?
Well, the answer is all of them. I think everybody's looking for power now. You both talked about it. It was interesting, Alix, you said to Romaine, guess what the topic was? And he said nuclear, and you said no AI. And it turns out the answer to both questions is, or both are the answer to the same question.
Yes.
People are looking at nuclear because AI demands a lot of power, and it demands 24/7 power. So that's exactly what we do.
So I've been covering commodities for like 17 years. And in the beginning, everyone was talking about uranium because we love nuclear. And then we stopped talking about nuclear for a long time. And now we're talking about it again. What kind of support do you have from the government with nuclear now? Like, why is this time going to be different in terms of nuclear expansion?
Well, look, I think it's the realization that as good as renewables have been and as important as storage and other technologies like that could be in terms of firming them up, we need baseload power in this country. We need power that runs 24/7 for American families and businesses. And, we don't just need power when the wind is blowing or when the sun is out. So the reality is we're going to need reliable power. We've seen that in different parts of the country, Texas, California, New England, even PJM a couple winters ago, which is this large swath of states in the middle of the country. We nearly lose the system on Christmas Eve because we don't have enough reliable power. Nuclear has saved the day each and every time, and it is also the key for the sustainability movement. So it was a recognition that was long deserved, and it took long to come, but it's finally here, and people recognize it from a policymaker perspective, both sides of the aisle, and of course from a market perspective, and that's what we're talking about.
How quickly can we sort of get up to speed on this, Joe? I know these projects take quite a long time to build.
Yeah, so let's kind of talk about it in pieces. I think there are really four things we're talking about when we're talking about nuclear. One is, it wasn't so long ago, and Alix made this point, that we were retiring nuclear plants. Now, we've arrested that with the IRA, but we need to get license renewal. If we don't do that, all the renewables we've built to date, all of that progress will be gone overnight. So number one, how do we continue to invest the capital in these machines to keep them operating for another 20 years? We think we could do that and run through 2060. Number two, how do we increase the output of these machines through what we call uprates in the business? And we think there are thousands of megawatts that are available to do that. That's going to be the new megawatt that is in the market. Third, can we continue to do what the DOE announced a few weeks ago and restarting some of the plants that were shut down? Palisades is an example of that. And then finally, how do we bring in new technologies, new small modular reactors? And my personal view is that those things are best located where there are existing nuclear plants, because that's where they're going to be accepted by the community. That's where we have security and the infrastructure to make them run most efficiently. In terms of when that could be done, Canada thinks it could be done sooner than the end of this decade. I think the U.S. is going to lag slightly behind, but we'll be there.
That sounds expensive, Joe. Like, who in essence is going to be paying for all of this?
Yeah, great question. And maybe the answer is the same thing we started out with. The AI companies are going to need enormous amounts of power. Now, we have available power today. We're not in a supply and demand pinch in a lot of parts of the country. So the first data centers, if you will be located where we have excess supply. But as we think about building out more of that technology infrastructure, and we're going to need it, the U.S. is not going to be behind on AI. It shouldn't be from an economic standpoint or from a national security perspective. Then it's going to be part of the responsibility of these companies to support the next generation of clean, firm energy, and they're already doing that.
That sounds like tech is going to pay for it, Joe. Is that what you're saying? You're like, you guys want it, you guys pay for it.
Well, I think that's part of it, right? I mean, that's been a part of it, but I think it's bigger than just tech. I think we need to make sure that policy supports it. and that we don't have a situation that we had, frankly, when we were shutting down the plants, where we kind of thought about the energy transition with really a perspective on two resources, wind and solar. We need to broaden our thinking. Nuclear needs to be a part of that. Natural gas with sequestration needs to be a part of it. Look, we need firm, reliable power as much as we need clean power. Our families aren't going to care about the energy transition if bills aren't affordable and if the power doesn't turn on when they throw the switch.
Yeah, that's definitely well said, Joe. Before we let you go, there was a thesis like a couple weeks ago when I was at an energy conference, and it was like, oh, all these big tech companies are going to be their own mini power stations. They're going to have their own little nuclear reactor next to their data center, and they become self-contained. Is that going to be true or not?
I think it's going to be partially true. It's not going to be the answer to every application, but there is already co-location of data centers with nuclear facilities that have been built. We've done it at certain plants on the fossil side of it. And I think it's going to make sense because a lot of what we're talking about is the wires and the integration costs. To do that most inexpensively, we could co-locate these facilities on land adjacent to the plants, and we could provide lots of power to them at the most affordable cost to our customer and to the grid.
All right, Joe, great to catch up with you. Joe Dominguez there, President and CEO of Constellation Energy.